So hello, and I'm Rose Latham, and I'm a life and leadership coach, and I'm here with Martin. Martin, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Martin. I'm an executive coach, so I've coached business leaders for 24 years. Yeah, we coach individual leaders, leadership teams, and sort of advise around culture as well.
Um, Martin, we know each other as part of Anchors Jane's AJC Career Coaching School, and we were having a conversation on text around intuition, or I had some questions for you maybe around intuition. um, because it's something I've really observed in you is that you appear to very strongly follow your intuition and use it as a guide within your day-to-day life and your business. And I thought it might be really interesting for us to have a brief exploration of that, that certainly would be in service to me and maybe really helpful for other people to hear. So
Great.
thank you for agreeing to have this conversation. Um, so we went back and forth a little bit with a couple of questions, and I thought actually one of the ones you shared was really helpful. Is what even is intuition?
This is a great exploration that I've been looking at, which is, so for me, it's, what are we intuiting?
Hmm.
um, there's some sort of deeper knowing that I think is what intuition is. It's like I know something and it's not in my rational mind. It's how do I know something like there's some level of knowing that is a creation through my thought, but it feels so deep and obvious that it's not a normal type of thought. So there's a normal type of thought, which is, I need to make this amount of money in my business, or I need to do this, or I need to do this at the weekend, or I should do that, or, um, I need to lose a stone, or I want to get fit, or et cetera, that tends to be quite, quite busy and quite rational. The other part that I'm actually seeing as I'm saying this is there's another part which is my conditioning. And that influences what I think I need to do a lot of the time. Is like I need to do this or I need to do that or I should. Um, some societal conditioning or my own conditioning. And what I'm experiencing is the more I can be aware of those voices, and the more I can go quiet inside myself, the more I can access this deeper knowing of what I'm here to do or what to do right now or what to say right now is like this is not coming from the rational mind. This is coming from this sort of deeper intuition type place. And what I'm increasingly doing with my life really over the last 10, 15 years is tuning into what that intuition is and following that.
Can I ask a question here?
Yeah.
So how is it different? Like is and what I mean by that is I get a sense from you that you can, I know from my own experience, right? But I'm curious for you to articulate it. Is there a different tone? Is there a different sense in your body? Is there like how would somebody know the difference? Or what's your experience of knowing the difference in that in receiving the message, if you like? Because it's like we're talking about the rational mind and we're talking about a deeper place, but how are they different? How are they received by you differently?
Right. So if I use an example, is like
Mm,
I know that I want to coach leaders who want to impact the world for the good.
Mm.
And I've had people try to convince me of like, well, yeah, but then, like try to convince me otherwise. And I'm like Ankush, actually, and I'm like, no, no, this is what I know I need to do and what I want, what I'm here to do. So there's another level of resoluteness I experience in now. How am I experiencing it? There's just a resoluteness and there's a groundedness and there's assuredness in this that feels like it's not coming from up in the mind. Does that answer the question?
I think in part, I think in part, the question that comes to me from that then is, has this always this knowing, let's say, the tonality of this knowing or the experience of this knowing, has that always been there for you? Or is this something that you've been, I guess, practicing more and more?
Yes, it's so how I relate to that is that I came across the three principles, which I know you're familiar with,
Mm.
from Sydney Banks. I came across that about 12 years ago, and my journey to that is into that is has helped me look at and shift my relationship to thought going on in my what thought is doing and what it's creating. And so my interpretation of that work has been to release myself from the grip of the noisy mind, to tune into what we might call intuition or
Mm.
wisdom, is like there's this deeper knowing. So my whole journey since 12 years ago has been, how do I lead a wisdom guided life?
Okay.
Where every choice I make about what I drink or where I go today or the clients I work with or where I live, like every element of it is like tuning into that wisdom. What is wisdom guiding? And
Yeah.
so I've made some pretty bold choices over these last 12 years, guided by this wisdom. So I've left a marriage as a result of this.
Okay.
I've moved location as a result of some really big significant things that actually aren't easy. And now I'm in the process of really revising and changing how I do business and what my services are. All so really it's shaping my whole life now to
Mm.
go, what is wisdom guiding?
And I wonder if you could bring that to like something. I mean, you shared some like what people might say is radical shifts there, and I wonder what that looks like on a day-to-day basis. So, because I guess underneath all this, I'm hearing that this is something that an inquiry that you're on, and that you haven't said this, but it sounds like you're trusting more and more and more as you are experiencing or taking action from the place of wisdom or slash intuition. Um, and I wonder, what does that look like on a day-to-day basis in terms of running your business? I think that's really a really interesting, um, yeah, an interesting exploration in and of itself.
Yes. Okay. Um, so I'm like, what I experience is this wisdom, this intuition comes more powerfully when there's there's quiet in the mind. And so I'm increasingly setting up my days whereby I've got nothing booked before 10 o'clock. Now, I'm fortunate that my kids have left home and, I haven't got a lot of commitments. I know everyone can't do this, but it's like to work out what for them they can do. Because for me, there's waking up, there's doing breath work, there's doing some yoga, and then there's sitting with a coffee in quiet and seeing what arises in me. And I might ask myself a question. I might just sit in quiet and see what comes up.
Mm.
Or I might sit there with a question, which is, what's the most critical thing I need to be doing today for the direction of my business?
So from these questions, from that question, and then you simply follow that. It's as simple as that. I love that you've frozen with that face. So yeah, just before you froze, I think I was asking, so is that, and then so you receive, I'm presuming you receive a knowing, a nudge, something from that, if sitting in quiet solitude, um, with your coffee, you ask yourself or your wisdom, let's say, or your intuition, a question, and then whatever arises, that's what you take action on that day, or depending on what the question is. Is that
Yes,
is that a fair
yes,
summary?
yes.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm curious, and one of the questions that you sent, which I thought was great, was um, when has this worked and when has it not worked?
Really great question. So what I'm experiencing with intuition or being wisdom guided is that it doesn't always mean I'm going to make the right choice. Well, there is no right choice,
Mm.
really.
Right, right.
But what I like the example I thought about is that um this is a personal one. I got back together with in a relationship that ended 2 years ago, and I kept getting this intuition to say be back in contact.
Yeah.
Without going into too much detail, I got back in contact, and
Mm.
actually through what unfolded is I realized that actually it wasn't right.
Okay.
So you could say the intuition guided me to do something that actually, if I'd have thought through in more detail, you could say I wouldn't have done that. Or I think how I look at it is we can never work out what's right for us to do or not, right? Is there's no right or wrong. There's no like perhaps I needed to get back in contact in that relationship and do what I did to get myself clear. So there's no right or wrong as to what I did. Well, you could say there is, but for me, there's just following this deeper knowing, like powerfully.
Mhm.
And sometimes it will work out amazingly. Sometimes it might not, but there's a power there's a power in my being when I'm tuning into this place and living from it.
Mhm.
Yeah, it feels like really strong energy around tuning into this and living a life that like if all I do is live a life where I'm tuning into what I have to challenge, there's a few things that have happened in the coaching school we're part of, right? Where I've had to challenge my thinking and going, is this deep knowing, or am I just stuck in some old pattern of conditioned ways?
Mm. Mm.
So I think there is a place to go, I don't track the numbers of my business and like there's a place for me to go, am I just resisting this and am I caught up in some unhelpful pattern? And or is this a deeper knowing? And so I do go through a process of questioning and looking at that, but 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 most importantly, I'm gonna trust this inner knowing and go, I'm just gonna go with it.
Mm.
And I'd rather go with it and be wrong and learn from being wrong than I would not go with it and live a life where I'm on the fence about stuff.
That's interesting you use the word wrong there, but I wonder if it's I guess what sort of occurs to me when you're saying that is it's no different than people follow it living from their thinking in many ways because it's so many people, I'm thinking of clients particularly, we spend a lot of time trusting and believing their thinking as if it's like an instruction and actually and then living a life where things are right or wrong, right?
Mm,
And it's either good or bad or successful or not, or however the mind like creates the interpretation of the outcome. So you and I guess what you're pointing to and what you're describing in following your intuition and actively, not just as a sideshow, but actively engaging, like what does it look like to lead a life? I forget the words exactly you use, but guided by wisdom or wisdom guided life is, well, in this space, you're tapping into something that's so much bigger and more powerful with a small p and has more
yes,
knowing, more experience, and something more potent, let's say, something more potent than
yes,
the small mind thinking.
yes.
And so there isn't a right or wrong, like you said, there's no right or wrong outcome.
No,
There will be an
no.
outcome,
Yes,
right? And there will be something for you, I guess, like what you're saying, there's something for you to see.
yes.
And it's not always pretty. It's not always what we want. It just there is
No.
something to see.
But yeah, yes, I agree.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of things that come up for me is
Mm,
like for those listening to this that are like on more on the spiritual path,
mm,
for me this almost feels like it's not me.
right.
It's like it's almost this intuition or this deeper calling is like it's flowing through.
Okay.
It's almost like there's a divine intelligence that is working through me.
Okay.
There's an intelligence beyond me, and I feel like the more I surrender into this, um, almost dissociating from it being me that's choosing these things, it feels so powerful, so empowered,
Mm,
and so on a part like the way I see it, because my life is not a classic conventional life in how I'm living or the fact whatever my relationship status etc. It's not classic.
mm,
The only but when I tune into I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. It's like it feels like I'm being guided almost by this higher power that isn't me.
mm,
And this is like moving to Glastonbury in the last 8 months is an example of that. It's like it just like felt like totally right. And now I'm here. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't really choose this. It's like, and now I'm like living in this with this energy and this magic unfolding that because I'm sort of surrendering to what my intuition has guided me to do.
yeah. Curious. Do you have a sense of in other people of how much they are or are not being led by their intuition, or is that something that's not of interest to you?
I think, yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to comment because I'm just projecting. But if I am going to project, I think it's easy to get caught up in what we think we should do,
Mm,
like our conditioning.
mm,
And I think that would be the first comment. The second comment is life is so busy for most people
mm,
That what's the quality of the thinking that they're accessing and where they're coming from. I
Yeah.
think those are the two things that, in my experience, I've been looking at. So even, on the school we're on, like, part of being in a coaching school is to look at my coaching and look at, and one of the implications of this school is to make more money. And so I've really been looking at that and going, where's that? Where is that important to me, and why? And how much am I saying I need to generate, and why? And what's the thinking underneath that? Is it a conditioned thing? Is it a societal thing, or is it my own conditioning that says I need more? Uh, so so yeah, it's really helping me look and inquire, and not the quietness and the is having me really challenge and question some of the conditioning.
So throughout all of this, what I also the other thing I'm picking up a lot from you is that questioning, asking the question to, I'm going to say to yourself, but to the power, the consciousness, the consciousness that runs through you. So asking quality questions, inquiry-led questions, it sounds like a very useful
Yeah.
tool here as a kind of a way in to access intuition, if you like.
Yes. Yes.
Because I can imagine, and I know certainly speaking from my experience, the temptation is like, come on then, talk to me intuition. It's like that's not how it works, right? If almost the and certainly in my experience, that's not how it works. So like you will get a kind of a knowing, like you say, a certain like a feeling, a gut feeling, say that people talk about in certain situations. And on a day-to-day basis, I'm hearing from you, it's like spending time with that inner knowing and cultivating a relationship with it. And one way to do that is by asking quality questions or questions.
Yes.
That it sounds like a sort of a practice that you really lean into and have are navigating at this
Yeah.
point. Is that sound
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
reasonable? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And um so the other thing I was reflecting on as you were
Mm,
talking is like this is really practical, like even now, right? It's like what does what does our intuition say about this conversation? Does it does it feel like this is a powerful conversation? Does it feel like we're having does my intuition, your intuition sense there's something good happening in this conversation? And so I'm using that because we can tune into this moment, and I'm going this I love there's something about me that's really loving this conversation, and like
mm,
so that's the intuition at work going.
mm,
Um, my intuition is going, oh, this is great.
mm,
And so just to point to the fact that the intuition is working in every moment, because if
mm,
the intuition was picking up something different, then 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 there's tuning into that and stopping
mm.
and saying, "Hey, Rose, I'm just going to stop it because I'm not feeling it
Yeah.
here." And so, how do we tune into intuition in every moment, not just sitting having a
Mm,
coffee after a bunch of yoga, right?
yeah.
Which is a privilege. It's like in our busy lives, whatever we're doing, are we tuning into and naming and noticing and speaking from this intuition?
And to speak to that, I guess what I have noticed, and actually it's thanks to other members of the school that I've become aware, is that I did a kind of a sigh about like 10 minutes ago or so, and it's just like that was my body giving me the sign, like that it's completely relaxed and I'm like fully embodied here in this conversation. It's really interesting. So for me, my and probably for everybody, but the what I've really noticed is that my body is the like the tuning fork, or it's letting me know in some way, and I don't what I it's easy to ignore those signals. It's easy to ignore those signs. I've spent many years like steamrolling over them in one form or another, but actually, the more I slow down to it, it's like my physicality, it gives me signals around how in tune I am or aligned I am with my intuition or my wisdom in each moment. So I'm noticing now, as you just were sharing that the sigh or the relaxing that I experienced just before you started speaking that piece just then was like, and then suddenly everything, all my like cells have like really released around my sort of my legs, and I just feel like very vibrant is the only way I could describe it. And it's not a signal that I'm looking for or seeking, but that's what I have noticed is what tends to occur once everything settles for me.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's a sort of a kind of if that's what you're pointing to in a way, because that intuition is always present, that wisdom is always present.
Yes. Yes. And so it might be a different bodily experience or mental experience or whatever. It might be different for each of us
Mm,
based upon our design or whatever else.
yeah.
But I'm sure we and all people listening to this have know what it feels like to like they know what intuition is for them.
Yeah.
The only game in town really is to tune into it more,
Yeah.
to have more awareness of it and to act on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm just going to give two examples of that. One is, like if my intuition and I'm sure if people are coaches, they're good at this actually because we're kind of paid to do it. But it's like we're paid to tune into our intuition and work with that and name stuff as a result of it. It's like hit. It's that's really what intuition is. But in any meeting is like, are we tuning into our intuition and then doing something as a result of it? If like
Mm,
my intuition is saying that you're not interested or distracted, am I noticing that in my intuition and then am I doing something with it to pick that up and to
mhm,
just explore it, or am I just ignoring it?
mm,
Because in the business world, this happens a lot. Or like we have a meeting and it was dull, it went on, people were distracted, and
mm,
and I'm picking all this up, but I'm then not doing anything with it. I leave the meeting and go, well, that was another dull meeting, wasn't it? But we're not doing anything with our intuition.
yeah. So it's an interrupter. We can use That's the possibility, isn't it? Our intuition can interrupt patterns and interrupt, and it will create a different outcome. We don't know
Yeah.
what that's going to be, right? Because we know what the outcome's going to be if we stay in the boring meeting. We stay in the
Yes.
meeting where the thing plays out as it always plays out, and then we'll have another meeting about the meeting. And yeah, I think I've certainly been in those meetings, and it
It,
takes something to sort of interrupt that. And I guess
yes.
that's
Although I'm going to use a different word,
okay.
if I may, which is the intuition is enabling intelligence, an
Yeah.
intelligent way of being and behaving.
Okay.
Because if we're in that meeting and we pick up all those signs and are also distracted on our phone and leave the meeting, that's not intelligent.
Mm,
It's
mm.
not an intelligent way of being. And so the intuition, and the more we tune into it and do something with it, enables us to live in a um, emotionally intelligent, spiritually intelligent way.
Well, that's yeah, I think it's quite a nice place to end on possibility there for people to consider and play with, for sure. It's like because I guess the most important thing here is for to test this out, isn't it? Because it's all very well as an idea, but actually it's in the testing and experimenting with and being with that. And that's what I've noticed in the school we're in. Those people that are, not that some are and some aren't, but some people are more vocal about their experience of um, tuning into, listening to, and following their wisdom slash intuition and creating fascinating, interesting, and epic results for themselves, which doesn't always look like financial abundance, and it can, but people are testing that out. And I think, as with anything, it's like that's the invitation here. For me, certainly, that's what I hear in what you're sharing.
Awesome. Yeah, great.
Thank
And
you.
and the more I just to
Mm,
end on that, then it's like how I see it is the only life that I want to live, or a well-lived life, is the one where I'm following and I'm guided by this intuition.
yeah.
It's like if I want to live my life, like I want to live my life fully. I want to live my life having lived it,
Mm,
and it's like following this intuition feels like whatever I end up doing, wherever I end up going, I would have lived it and have no regrets and be there at 85 in my armchair going, well, at least I gave this life a big go, right?
right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Exactly that.
Thank you, Rose.
Amazing. Thanks, Martin.